To everybody who's been liking the videos so far, we thank y'all. You guys liking the videos has kind of helped us start to grow the channel even more, so we appreciate it. To those who have not, please, we ask you, hit the like button before you even watch this video. It helps us grow the channel, helps people learn about us, and allows us to make more great content like this. So that's all we got. Thank you for helping us grow this channel. Hit the like button right now, and on with the show. Super Duty Tough Work. The most infamous podcast, planet Earth. They know how we do. They know how we do it. Gems, jewels, bars and whatnot. Every single week. Brand new episode. Although not every week lately, but we do our best.
Yeah.
Consistent. We're still consistent though.
Yeah.
When we look at the grand scheme of podcasts, we may not be every week like we was for a minute. We still got mega episodes.
Right.
And we're doing a lot more than a lot of cats. So we still active in this John. But life happens. But in between that, your boys be doing music.
Word.
So what we gonna do this week is we're gonna do a follow-up episode to last week's episode, which got some good feedback. So last week's episode, we talked about tips for producers, composition tips. And we got a lot of good feedback on the social medias. And so this week, we want to talk about bonus tips for music producers. Bonus Johns, extra Johns, if you will. So if you are a music producer, you might be at home right now, firing up that record player, firing up that sampler, pulling that record out that sleeve, putting the needle to it. We know it's time. You can put this podcast on while you do that.
Facts.
One of the beautiful things about Super Duty Tough Work is you can listen to us while you create. But yeah, we're going to do some bonus tips, man. But how you doing today, Mr. Illogic?
I'm doing good, man. So it's early. You know what I'm saying?
Morning.
It is early. But nah, I'm good, man. Sunday, I'm off work tomorrow.
Oh, shit. Lucky you.
Yeah.
I go on vacation next Saturday.
What?
Yeah, I'm taking a week off, bruh.
Oh, shit.
First vacation of my working career.
Oh, snap.
Really, first days off. I ain't taking a day off since I started working in December. I just be grinding, Jack, trying to get this money. And so I'm taking some time off, man. It's going to be needed. And, head south.
Oh, you going to see the moms?
Yeah, moms. I'm going to stop in Orlando. See the
Okay.
beach down there, and then see my family and my sister, my niece, and I was in Pensacola. So I'm gonna just do the little southern loop and come back up, kind of like a week. But yeah, man, looking forward to it.
Word.
But to everybody out there listening, if you dug last week's episode, we got more little gems and jewels this week. Small little things that should hopefully help your productivity. And so we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Word.
We got you stuck off the realness, the most infamous, you heard of us. Official podcast murderers, the show comes equipped with viewpoints to share. Grown man ideas for all those who care and want to grow, so go ahead and download. Every single week with a brand new episode. You're not alone in this world, cousin, so we share information and honest discussion and keep repping the culture like we supposed to. They spread gossip, but they never come close to. I can hear it inside their tone. They talk about the industry but never left their home. You get laced up with bullet points and such, plus empowering topics that they never would touch. You can put your whole network against the team, but Super Duty Tough Work's the MVP. Most valuable podcast on MP3. Priceless info, but all of it's free. So take these words home and think them through. Super Duty Tough Work is coming at you. You are now listening to Super Duty Tough Work with your host, Blueprint, Raw conversations. No shucking, no jiving, and no bullshit.
All right, folks, we're back. Super Duty Tough Work, the most infamous podcast on planet Earth. Blueprint, Illogic, hitting you with, tips, jewels, all that. This week we're talking about bonus tips for music producers. We are both, in addition to being rappers, we are both music producers. And, we have certain things we do and certain things we've learned over the years. And I have many myself. And so we're trying to get some of these jewels out there into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So that this can improve your shit too. And if you're on Twitter, or the gram, and you have some jewels that maybe we didn't talk about, hit us with them on there. Shit, there might be a whole other episode in fan bonus tips.
Oh, that'd be nice.
That we don't have, And so, we're going to get it started with the number one tip. And these are not in order of priority or anything like that. But this tip, I'm going to call it keep it in the family. And this kind of goes with the composition thing that we talked about last week. There's this thing that happens now that didn't used to happen back in the days where you write a melody or something and you then spend like hours fine tuning, searching for sounds, trying to pick the right patch for one sound.
Yeah.
And you can do this shit for hours. VST after VST, synth after synth, pad after pad, lead after lead. All of this shit just to find one sound. Now that's just one. You still got other elements you got to find, right? They didn't do that back in the day.
Nah.
Back in the day, they didn't do that because they were working in boxes that had a finite number of sounds.
Right.
That number of sounds is the family. That's the family. If you want your shit to sound consistent, keep it in the family. So like if a guy had a Yamaha DX or something, he would play the bass on there. He might play the lead on there. He might play some chords on there. But what he didn't do was he didn't go through 30,000 patches to find one fucking lead sound. And what happens now is because we got so many more sounds, it adds all this time to the process. Sound selection is an art in and of itself now.
Right.
And but what I notice is that you can find dope sounds, but there's no guarantee they're gonna go together texture-wise if they're from different sources.
Right.
So the best thing you can do, and that I've had a lot of success with, is once you find that first thing, choose the rest of your things from that family of things, if you will. Like if it's a fucking base station, or if it's a fucking I used to do this a lot when I had my micro Korg. Like the majority of Adventures in Counterculture was micro Korg. And even though I had a bunch of VSTs then, I still chose the micro Korg because I found that when I took pads off there and mixed them with the leads off there, and it all just blended better because they were from the same family.
Yeah, and it's the same quality.
Yes. Like you have certain VST where like a patch will sound good, but then it won't sound that good when you put it next to something that's a little more expensive, nice.
Right.
This sound kind of corny all of a sudden. This sound ain't hitting like that. And if you're a producer out there, I mean, it's not always possible, but don't think that getting a bunch of VST synths with a million patches is the answer to sound selection. It's actually the opposite. Tone it down and keep the shit in the family if you can.
Yeah, usually when I'm composing, playing, I use the same VST for all of the elements. I'll switch patches here and there.
Yeah.
But, I have my go-tos when it's like, okay, I'm making a lead, I'm doing a lead, I'm doing a pad, I'm doing like there's certain VSTs that I go to for those things. Now I'll use different patches for different beats, so I won't be making the same damn beat all the time. But to make sure that the quality, the sound, the punch, all of that stuff is the same or similar, I have like probably a group about 5 or 6 that I use regularly.
Yeah.
And then when I'm making a track, I'll, concentrate on one or two that I know blend well together because I've worked with them, so much. But yeah, man, have your family,
Yeah, and maybe I guess this is also a commentary on not buying too much gear,
Mm-hmm.
keeping it simple in that sense, because the temptation, and we've all been through it, is to go buy as much shit as possible so you
Mm-hmm.
can have options. But sometimes it can be overwhelming. Like I got this, what is it? This Arturia. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. This joint, this Arturia V collection shit. Number one, this shit look like some Microsoft product when you get it. This thing right here probably weigh 20 pounds, dude. It got a manual for every joint in here.
Oh, it's all the manuals for all the
yeah. It's fucking thick.
And that V collection ain't cheap.
No.
But the quality is banging.
Exactly. I sold all my hardware since.
Mm-hmm.
I sold all that, the money I took from that I bought V collection with.
Yeah.
But the downside of V collection is, man, you get lost in them motherfucking packages.
So much. I don't even have V collection, but I have a couple Arturia joints, and just with what I have, like I haven't even tapped the surface of all the shit that I got.
It's overwhelming, dude. I got it. I didn't know it was gonna be like that.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I kind of be missing my microcorg and my little Triton and shit. Like, damn. Because it was limited. It was limited. It made you work with what you had. This shit is unlimited. It's literally thousands of fucking leads for any fucking instrument they got. They got like 8 or 10 different instruments in this motherfucker, and it's like each one got thousands of sounds. Who got time to go through all that, man? Right. I don't, so, keep it in the family if you can. Take it from me. It can be overwhelming. You get too many. That's tip number one. Bonus tip number one. Bonus tip number two is use octaves for depth. This is a jewel that everyone learns eventually, but there is a way you make something, you create a sound or a melody that you like, and it just don't sound full. You're like, yeah, it sounds great. I love the melody, but and then you feel like you just need to keep adding to it. So then you add this thing and that thing. You add all these different things doing different stuff. And the chances are you probably didn't even need to do that. Like all you really needed to do was maybe copy that melody, lower it an octave, put it in the background. I do this shit so much and it works. You can drop it an octave, put it in the background, throw reverb on it.
Yeah.
Cut the highs out.
Yeah.
Then it's just back there, just kind of low, but it just sounds like it's adding depth, I do that shit all the time, man. It works with damn near everything.
Yeah, it does.
And I also think it might also work with sampling. Like it's not just the playing thing. And sampling, you do it too, right? Like, yo, this sample don't sound thick enough. Let me drop this octave and put it back there and let it kind of thicken this shit. Because it's really hard sometimes to create texture with non-sampled stuff. And so this is kind of a trick to create more texture for those of you who are looking for that.
Yeah, sometimes what I do, I'll take a sample and I'll resample it. I'll take all the highs out, drop it down an octave, and throw a little bit of distortion on it. And throw it in the background just to give it, like you said, give it some texture, give it some, even some movement a little bit, just to add to sprinkle a little something to make it, shine a little bit.
Yeah. And as we talked about last week, you can also slide it around.
Yeah, move it around.
You ain't got to have it hit right at the exact same time as the one that your main one. You can slide it back just a millisecond or two. So people can faintly hear it in the background, but it's not the main focus. But octaves are good for anything, and I've been using them a lot the last couple of weeks since I got back to composing more. So many times I'm sitting on a beat like, yo, it's just missing something. It's just missing something. The line is great. What's it missing? Then I'm like, oh, why don't I just have this instrument play it an octave up? Or I'll make a copy and have it play an octave down and put it in the background. And it fixes everything.
Yeah.
You know, only thing you probably do have to watch out for when you do that is make sure that the one that you put an octave below, you got to watch an EQ on that one.
Yeah, so it don't make it muddy.
Woo, that shit'll be deep in the subs. You be like, this shit is making everything muddy and fucked up. So you got to be careful with that one that you drop down there. But in general, it's a good practice. That's number 2. Number 3, this is just a digging tip for people who dig, whether you dig virtually or whether you dig, conventionally with the records and stuff. And this is something that I notice all the time. And people be like, yo, why don't you dig virtually and digitally and shit? And my biggest complaint about digging digitally versus listening to a record is I can look at the groove on a record. And I think that's why some people kind of don't enjoy digging for records. They haven't really learned how to read the grooves to kind of speed up the process. And so for those of you at home who don't really dig records, what we do, guys like us do, is we always listen to the beginning of the song. We always listen to the end of the song.
Yep.
And then we immediately jump to any groove changes where it gets real thin.
Yep.
This is how you scan it first. This is your first scan. You're gonna go through. You're gonna play the beginning. You gotta play the beginning to see what they're doing.
Right.
Okay. Then if it's dope, you want to go to the end. Let me see if they gave me some jewels there. Okay. Now you get up and you scan the grooves. And what them grooves look like. Every time you see a groove that's thin, that's where the music is breaking down, where it's getting sparse. You want to focus on the grooves. And I know this is probably common sense to everybody who's been digging for a long time, but trust me, this is a whole new generation of cats who probably have never sampled a record before out there.
Right.
And they don't got the patience to sit and do what we did or to learn this shit. Ain't got nobody to tell them, focus on the grooves, dog. And we learned this shit over years, but the grooves can tell you everything you need to know. Like if some songs, you can tell they're too fucking busy just by looking at the grooves.
Right.
I can't sample nothing on it. Look at this. The groove is just thick as hell and it never breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Just I'm not really gonna listen to this whole fucking song.
Right.
Whereas some songs it's just nothing but groove changes and breakdowns and shit. You can just look at it with your eyes. You ain't gotta hear. You're like, oh, this okay.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta take my time with this one. Let me listen to this whole song because they got a lot of groove changes. And after you scan the grooves, then you can go back and listen to the whole thing and kind of figure it out. But record grooves are your friend.
Yeah, definitely.
That's number 3. And so we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Word.
This is your weekly reminder that we have 2 books that you, as a listener or watcher of this podcast, need to absolutely own. The first is The 10 Traits of Successful Hip Hop Artists, and the second is The Social Media Cheat Code. Both of these books were released within the last year. The 10 Traits of Successful Hip Hop Artists is a book where I go through the stories and explain the traits that are behind the success of some of the biggest names in hip hop today. The book has got nothing but amazing feedback. And if you are an artist, business person, whatever you do, if you would like to be inspired and would like to learn more about hip hop along the way and also see some reinforcement of the concepts that we talk about on this podcast, The 10 Traits of Successful Hip Hop is for you. Second book is The Social Media Cheat Code. That is for everyone who listens to this podcast who does not consider themselves an expert or really good at social media. It's not for super experienced people. It's actually for people who are on social media but are not getting the results you need. So what we did is I broke down like 12 or 13 strategies that I use all the time that actually work really well for me. I put it into book. I gave you examples and I tell you how to implement it. That's a book you absolutely need as a listener to this podcast, watcher of this podcast. If you're on YouTube, supporting these books actually goes a long way towards supporting the podcast. So to support the show, if you like what we do, obviously we don't necessarily get paid to do this shit. So support the products and services that we create. And these 2 books are a big part of that. We appreciate your support, and back to the show. It's true. All right, folks, we back. Super Duty Tough Work, Blueprint, Illogic, back here doing a damn thing. This is bonus tips for music producers this week. Follow up on last week's episode. And we got 3 down. We're on tip number 4.
and this is one for that I didn't start doing until I started fucking with Ableton more. And this is default templates.
I still don't do this.
What?
Yeah, I don't.
You wild as hell, man.
I got a couple templates, but sometimes I like to start from scratch. You know,
But
I don't know.
Still start from scratch.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know because I don't use all the same shit all the time.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
For my process, for those of you at home, default templates, what it is before we get you and I get too deep.
Okay. Before we dive too deep
into
what are they talking about?
Without the concept.
Right.
The default template is, okay, so with Ableton, for example, and many other workstations where you can produce, you have the ability to save your current song as a default template. Meaning every time you start a new song, it starts with whatever you have loaded in your there as your default. So for me, my default template is a drum kit with just a kick, snare, hi-hat. Basic. That's one track. My second track is a grand piano. That's it. My third track in my default template is just an audio track that I can automatically drag a sample to. That's it. Last night, I added some shit to my default drum thing, just some percussion sounds and some rides that I really like and I'm tired of looking for all the fucking time. You know, because rides, you can find a fucking hi-hat, but a nice little ride, a nice little...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Real crispy sound, organic. Like, I'd be tired of looking for them motherfuckers. So I added some of those to my default drum kit. But what this does, it works for me. Because and it also set like my tempo. My default tempo is 80. I also have like you know, Ableton allows you to have clips, so you typically start in clips. I have 4 clips loaded that are automatically 4 bars in length, so I don't have to set my bar length when I'm making my initial sequence. I know it's gonna be 4 bars, so I don't just start recording and then it messes up my shit. What else do I put in my default template? That might be the main things. But basically what I'm doing there is, because I know at some point I'm going to need a kick, snare, hi-hat. At some point I'm going to be playing, no matter what I'm doing. I'm either going to be messing with a sample, chopping it, or I'm going to be playing something. The piano on my track 1 is just so that as soon as I hit new track, bling, sounds is coming. I'm not getting into the sound search thing. You know, I can immediately find the melody or whatever's in my head faster. And I've got it set up to where it's automatically going to record a 4-bar sequence or clip for me. And then, you know, the audio track is just so that if I ain't playing and I just want to pop it over there, it's good to go. They're kind of a new thing. Like, people I never thought about it in the past, but my style of production is pretty much, I have my process down, you know? And so because I usually start at the piano, or I'm either starting at the piano or I'm chopping something. That's it. And so my default template allows me to do that. Now, whatever you do at home, for those of you listening, you should come up with a default template that fits what you do. Maybe because everybody's workflow is different. Some people start, you know, maybe you play bass. Some people start with the bass line.
Yeah.
So if you start with the bass line, maybe you just want a track number 1 that's got your favorite default generic bass. That when you hear it, you want to just start fingering and playing with shit. Okay, yeah, this is my jam right here. Because if you know that 90% of the time you start with bass, it pays to have you don't want to be spending this time looking for your basses and shit like that. Just have it loaded just in case you ready to compose in that manner. And so default templates, man, that's my shit. I can't believe you don't do it, man. You need to get up on that. Something wrong with you.
Well, I have a mixing template. So like when I load my stuff, usually all the shit that I use to mix is preloaded.
Yeah.
But as far as instruments, I usually don't, because, you know, sometimes I'm doing samples, sometimes I'm doing this, sometimes I'm doing that.
Me too.
And but it's and even when because I do have, like I said, I have my family of, you know, VSTs that I use. But you know, sometimes I venture outside of that, and I just like starting from scratch with all the sounds and stuff. I don't know. It's weird. I got some templates that I've saved, but I don't really use them that often unless I, because I have them labeled to a place where I know, like, okay, maybe I'm gonna start here. This is what I'm feeling today. I might use them here and there, but for the most part, I usually don't use them.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you about 6 months, man. You're gonna be using them. We're gonna do a follow-up on this episode, y'all, and then Logic's gonna be using templates at that point. I'm gonna be on his head every week. Hey, you using them templates yet? Come on, man.
I know it would speed up my workflow though.
That's the thing.
You know what I'm saying? I know I probably could, like you said, get rid of the VST search and the patch search and all that. Start with something basic like piano. Yeah. Maybe a piano, a bass sound that I use normally. And, I could always switch shit out. You know what I mean?
That's the thing, because it all gets switched out. Like everything that I start with is never what I finish with, because it's just a generic. And I don't even use a nice VST piano. I use the cheapest, fastest one to load. That's the easiest on the processor.
Yeah.
And I can vote because I don't want to be slowing shit down. I don't want to be worried about my CPU getting crazy.
Right.
While I'm just fucking around trying to write something. And so, but yeah, you at home, use them. They'll help you a lot. That's tip number 4, bonus tip. Bonus tip number 5, naming conventions. This is what we would call it in IT and information systems. Your naming conventions. I don't know what people call them out here in music, but you studied information.
Yeah.
Naming conventions are mad important.
Yeah.
Naming convention is the scheme or the philosophy that you use to name your files, to save your data. And you choose a philosophy that allows you to search.
Yes.
And find exactly what you're needing when you need it.
Yes.
A lot of y'all out there, you save shit and it don't have no name or nothing that describes what the fuck it is. And you be like, I wonder why I can't find this beat, because your ass doesn't know how to name your fucking shit. You have no naming conventions. Your shit is terrible.
When I first started, when I was sampling, I just saved shit like drum or just random dumb shit. Yeah, just random dumb shit. And then I could never figure out why. So I adapted a naming convention for saving my samples now.
Yeah,
because even just saving stuff without the record name, what I'm saying, or without the song name, like I have a whole filing convention now. You know what I'm saying, to how I even file my samples in my folders. Yeah. So I can know what record they come from, what song it is, what the tempo is, all of that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very important.
I used to not be able to find nothing.
And you know what? When you first start, it don't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter because you ain't got a million fucking samples. You ain't got that much shit. So yeah, kick 01. Yeah, you only got 3 kicks.
Right.
It don't matter. You know what I mean? Right. Piano loop 12, that's fine. Right. You ain't got but 13 piano loops.
Right.
25 samples. When you start filling up that hard drive, when you start really, really getting your sounds up, you got to have a naming convention that works. Like mine is basically artist name first. This is for just samples. I have artist name, or abbreviation. It got to be their full name, as long as it's got like their last name or something that I could identify them with. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's like Petula Clark, I could just put Petula. Yeah, there's only one Petula out there. Right. You know what I mean? And then underscore. And the next one is if I sample multiple things off that record's song name. Abbreviation for the song name. Then another underscore. And then some sort of description of it. If it's got just a prominent thing where it's like, piano, voice, singing, background noises, talking, bass line, then I'll put that in there last. And that's it. But that allows me to, like, if I got multiple things, I'll know which song I got it from in case I ever go back and need to use it, find that sample. I can tell by the song. I know the name. I know the song. I don't have the album name, but at least I know I only have so many of that person's albums. It'll be on one of their albums that I got. And that kind of helps me get to it. And then I can search the last part by the instrument or whatever I may be looking for,
Yeah, see, I do mine the opposite way. I do instrument first, song name, artist, and then I'll do album too.
Okay,
So
album at the
I
end.
usually have a long, at the end. So I
Yeah.
do mine a little backwards just so I can search the instruments that I want.
First.
And then if I have to go back, you know what I'm saying, to the
Yeah.
record, then I can look like, okay, it's from this record, that song, that artist, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's dope as well. Yeah, and however you decide to do it at home, we ain't gonna tell you exactly how to do it.
Do
But
it
we
works
just
for you.
Yeah, do what works for you. What's important is that you do it. You have to do it sooner than later, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna get to the point to where when you really start getting your samples up, you really start getting your beats up, you ain't gonna be able to find nothing.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a bunch of samples that ain't named properly. You can't tell where and maybe you lose a beat and you trying to figure out where did I get that sample from.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't even remember because you ain't never looked at it and known the name of the sample. You forgot as soon as you sampled it. You know, dope piano loop. You don't know who the artist is, album, genre.
Right.
You don't know. It just is dope piano loop. That's it. Well, can you find that motherfucker again? No, you can't. You have no idea. You know, and so get on top of your naming conventions. Find something that works for you. But I think the things like we're saying that are kind of important is the artist and or album. You know, if you search by instruments, you know what I'm saying? And those things are highly important because that's gonna tell you what you go back and find and go and need to find. You know, especially if you're sampling, you might need to find it for any number of reasons. Maybe you want to go back and pull more stuff off that same song.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't do that if you don't have it named properly.
Yeah.
So that's number 5. Tip number 6. And this goes along with number 5, and this is tagging and color labeling. Now, this is something that I know is built into Mac. I don't know if they got it on Windows. I don't use my Windows PC too much for that. But the concept is simple. The concept is that on Mac, you can assign colors to files. And so it's got like maybe 10 or 20 colors. And if you do like your left click, it'll have a drop down of all the actions, you know, typically that you can do with a file. And at the very end, it's got like, it says tagging and it's got a bunch of colors. You can use this to categorize things at the file system level, not even within like your DAW or your sampler. And so you can look and be like, okay, I want to categorize all my drum kits with orange. Anytime I put this here, I'm gonna put an orange there. Then you ain't got to search for drum kits, kicks, all this other stuff. You can do it by color. And then without even going into your thing, your sampler, you can be organizing your files, which is pretty fucking dope. I don't use it enough. And you can search by colors, categorize by colors, and order by colors in your file system. But it's really dope. Now, Ableton now has that, I think on version 11 or 10, they added the ability to do the same kind of thing. The only issue is that they only got like 5 colors, 6 colors.
That's not gonna help.
I didn't use 6. I got 6. They gone. I used all 6 of mine. I'm trying to think of what I used my 6 on. But you know, I wish they had like 20 colors, so you can name like a collection. And so, like one of my collection is I got favorites. I got orange is chop later. That's what I use orange for. Yellow is vocal sample. Green is sample replay. Blue is 5-star sample. Anything I get that blue color to is incredible. Purple is breaks, the best breaks. And then gray is just percussion that I really like and I don't feel like looking for again. Like I'll stumble on it and I need to remind myself to put that somewhere. Okay. You know, purple or the gray joint. But that's how it works inside Ableton. But you can do the same thing without Ableton at the file system level if you got Mac. Now I ain't been on Windows in forever. I don't know. They might have something on there. Somebody correct me. You know, this PC
Not that I know of. I'm on Windows and I've never seen it.
Seen it? Okay, so yeah, it probably don't exist on there. Because like this PC that I record this show on is really the only one that I use, and I ain't used PC in 10, 15 years prior to that. So I'm not completely sharp on that as far as the things, but I'll take your word for that. If you ain't seen it, it probably ain't there. But if you on Mac or anything like that, then the color labeling and tag and the tagging categories on at the system level, like in your file organizer thing, is real dope. And then inside Ableton, you can do it with the colors in there. You can just, and when you add a color to something, it just puts like a little tiny dot in that color next to the file name in Ableton. And then at that point, when you click on that color in your categories list, you know, it will show you everything that you've put in there, you know, which is dope. So you don't have to even worry about it. And so you choose a color, name that color, get that color category like I did, like, you know, best breaks. Then as you're scrolling through your stuff, listen to samples. Oh, let me put this in that color. Let me put this in that thing. And then eventually, you know, you're going to have some powerful shit because you ain't got to search at all.
Yeah, I just looked again. It's not there for Windows.
Damn it. Damn it. Okay, so that's number 6. Okay, let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Where?
Quick announcement. Over the last several years, we've been asked many times by the listeners of the show if we would ever open it up to the public for advertising. We've always been interested in this, but we never had the systems in place to make it work properly. I'm proud to announce that we are officially accepting advertising from the public on Super Duty Tough Work. Meaning, if you're a small business owner or an artist and you'd like to create more awareness about your product, service, or release on the Super Duty Tough Work podcast, we're now in a position to do that. For more information, email us at superdutytoughwork@weightless.net. Again, that's superdutytoughwork@weightless.net. Email us there. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you would like to promote, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible to let you know if we think it's a good fit and what the next steps are. Thank you for your time. Back to the show. 2 joints left. Super Duty Tough Work. More tips for music producers. Number 7 tip, bonus tip, is have a favorites list. This kind of goes along.
Super important.
You know, this goes along with the last 3 that we had. You know, the default templates, the naming conventions, the color labeling, and a favorites list is very, very important. Like my favorites list probably only got 10, 20 things in it. You know what I'm saying? Max. It's got like my piano that's easy to load and low on CPU. It's got like my favorite delay, you know what I mean, that I just like throwing on shit just to get it started. It's got like my favorite reverb, and it's just got maybe 10 things in it, but it's things that I always use. Every beat, there's probably like 10 plugins I always fucking use. And so like in Ableton, you can just create a favorites list, and that's basically, for me, I use the red tag for that. And anything I put in that with a red tag, that's my favorite. So I can just click on that as soon as I get in, and anything I'm looking for as I'm making a beat, I can just drag and drop it. But we all have those kind of go-to VSTs and plugins and things that we use damn near every beat.
Yeah, I have a favorites folder on my my FL Studio with the VSTs I use normally. But even within VSTs, I have a favorites list of sounds that I like to use. So, you know, my favorite bass, or, you know, couple basses out of this VST, favorite violin sound, you know, so on and so forth.
Yeah, you can do it there too. So yeah, like within Arteria, you can't necessarily. They got like 10 plugins in that beat collection, but only a couple of them allow you to kind of rank the sounds. You know, you can put the stars. I think the what's the one? Gosh, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it's one. It's like you can basically there's a category as it lists all these sounds. It has like 5 dots.
Yeah,
I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, is it? Yep. And then you can basically, anytime I use one or find one I like, I'll then change it to like, I think they all default to 2 dots.
Yeah.
If I like it, I'll add a 3rd dot. If I use it, I'll put 5 in there. And then I'll just order it by the number of dots, which is basically like number of stars, you know. And then within that, whenever you in that category, you can kind of go to the joints you've used before that you've already done the work. Because like we said, there's literally thousands of fucking sounds in here, man.
Yeah. And you can change the sounds. So they have like each sound has its, the knobs where you can adjust and manipulate each sound to sound different every time you use it, even if it's the same sound.
Yep. And so it's good to be able to go straight to those as fast as possible, because that is the one of the biggest detriments in making music now with all this digital stuff, is that it's just so many options.
Yeah.
There's so many files, so many patches and shit, that where you will spend more time searching for sounds, fine-tuning your sounds, than you did actually like making the beat.
Yeah.
And that don't make no sense. It's like you should spend more of your time making the music than fine-tuning the sounds, going through 2,000 patches if you don't have to.
Right.
So that's number 7. Last joint. And this is something, we talked about off air before, but we're going to come back and talk about it now. And this tip is to stay connected. And by stay connected, I mean your studio. One of the things I didn't like about when I had my bigger space out there in the other part of my basement was that I just had gear on all different walls. I had some shit over there, some shit over there, some shit behind me, and it wasn't connected properly, So whenever I wanted to use these 2 synths, I had to connect this and plug this into this and patch into that, and then put the MIDI cable into there, and then who wants to do all that shit? And what happened is it fucked up my workflow a lot, And that to me is one of the biggest bonuses of when you stop using a bunch of outboard gear. When you use a decent amount of outboard gear, take a day, a weekend, a week, a month, whatever you got to do, take that time and make sure everything is plugged in at the same time and working together.
Right.
Because if you don't, you're going to be wasting a lot of fucking time every time it's time to make a fucking beat.
Yeah, because you got to plug it in, make sure it works, make sure the signal flow is right, make sure it's recording correctly, make all of that stuff. If you just take a day, week, whatever, depending on how much gear you got, just making sure everything is working properly. So all you got to do is turn that bitch on.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And start playing. That's the best way. And that way it won't mess up your workflow, because you can mess up your whole day trying to hook up a piece of gear because I want to use this. And I ain't used it in a month and it's sitting on a shelf. I got to plug it up, make sure it works still.
Yeah, don't let the motherfucker start acting funny.
Oh, come on.
Like maybe it worked last time you used it, but this time it don't want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to make beats no more.
Yeah.
Fuck this. But that I used to fall victim to that, because that's when I had all them synths, and I didn't have everything connected right.
Yeah.
And that was always why I was like, you know what? Maybe this style ain't for me. Maybe I just need to be fucking with shit that's easier to connect and more integrated. And, if you choose to go the outboard gear route, take as long as you need to connect your gear. Make sure it stays connected. Maybe you got to spend a little more money. Maybe you got to get that patch bay. You got to get that out, that mixer. Maybe you got to get a couple extra things.
Right.
But when it's time to work, your workflow will be much improved if you stay connected.
Yeah. Spend good money on cords. Don't get the cheap cords.
Yes, that's true.
Spend some money on those gold-plated tip joints.
Yeah.
So your signal flow is right. You might have to spend a little more coin, spend the $30 on the cord instead of $15,
Yes. Because that shit all matters. It
all
matters if you're playing that outboard gear game. Like you got to have good cabling. You got to make sure your electric flow is right. You ain't overloading no shit.
Yeah.
Like everything. Some shit, the MIDI can be hit or miss on some of the older shit. So it's like, make sure everything stays connected so you never have to go through that setup over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And so that's it.
Word.
That's it this week. Bonus tips for music producers. I'm going to read them back. Number 1, keep it in the family. Number 2, use octaves for depth. Number 3, use the record grooves. Number 4, default templates. Number 5, naming conventions. Number 6, color labeling, tagging categories. Number 7, favorites list. And number 8, stay connected. That's it. A little shorter episode this week, but I hope y'all can dig it. And I think that's it for this week. See y'all next week. Bye.
Peace. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Super Duty Tough Work. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Follow the podcast on SoundCloud. Peace.
Shoot, I got styles already that's more complex that nobody know about. I mean, super duty tough work.